In this video, I'll summarize the plot of A Streetcar Named Desire in about 4 minutes and give you an analysis of the story. Okay, let's get started with the introduction. The play begins with Blanche DuBois arriving in New Orleans to visit her sister, Stella, who lives in a cramped apartment with her husband, Stanley Kowalski. Blanche, a former Southern belle, is visibly unsettled and out of place in the working-class neighbourhood. She explains to Stella that their family estate, Belle Reve, has been lost, but she avoids discussing the details. Blanche's refined and delicate manner contrasts with the raw, aggressive energy of Stanley, who immediately distrusts her. Tension begins to rise when Stanley, suspicious of Blanche's story, demands proof of what happened to Belle Reve. Blanche, rattled by his hostility, tries to charm him, but her act does little to soften his suspicions. Meanwhile, Stella is torn between her loyalty to Blanche and her devotion to Stanley, setting the stage for the conflict that will unfold. Blanche attempts to find stability in her new surroundings, but her illusions are fragile. She becomes interested in Mitch, a friend of Stanley's who appears more gentle and considerate than the other men. Seeing Mitch as a possible escape from her troubles, Blanche tries to present herself as pure and virtuous, hiding her past from him. Meanwhile, Stanley continues his investigation into Blanche's history. He discovers that she did not leave her hometown due to financial hardship alone. She was forced to resign from her job as a teacher after having an affair with a student. She has since been living in cheap hotels, relying on strangers for support. When Stanley confronts Blanche about her past, she becomes defensive, but her anxiety reveals cracks in her carefully crafted persona. As Blanche's relationship with Mitch develops, she hopes for a future with him, but Stanley is determined to expose her lies. During a tense poker night, Stanley's temper flares, and he lashes out at Stella, hitting her in a drunken rage. Despite Blanche's pleas, Stella chooses to stay with him, further emphasizing her dependence on Stanley's dominance. Blanche's own stability weakens as she struggles to maintain her illusions. She indulges in fantasies about escaping to a better life and clings to the belief that Mitch will save her. However, when Stanley tells Mitch the truth about Blanche's past, her dreams begin to crumble. Mitch, disgusted and betrayed, distances himself from her, leaving her even more vulnerable. Blanche's emotional state deteriorates as she faces rejection from Mitch and increasing hostility from Stanley. In a final confrontation, Stanley asserts his dominance in the most brutal way possible. While Stella is in the hospital giving birth, he forces himself on Blanche, shattering what remains of her mental stability. Stanley's act of violence is the ultimate destruction of Blanche's fragile world. She had relied on her ability to manipulate and charm men to survive, but Stanley, embodying raw and unrelenting power, refuses to play along with her illusions. With no one to protect her, Blanche is left completely broken. By the final act, Blanche is mentally shattered, retreating into a delusional state where she believes a wealthy admirer is coming to take her away. Stella, unable to accept the truth about Stanley's actions, chooses to believe that Blanche is simply unwell. At Stanley's insistence, she arranges for Blanche to be sent to a mental institution. When the doctor and nurse arrive, Blanche resists at first, terrified of what is happening to her. However, as they gently lead her away, she regains a moment of composure and utters her famous line, "I have always depended on the kindness of strangers." Her departure is met with indifference from Stanley, who comforts Stella as if nothing has changed. The play ends on a tragic note, with Blanche's illusions shattered and her fate sealed, while Stanley and Stella continue their lives as before. One of the most prominent themes in A Streetcar Named Desire is the conflict between illusion and reality. Blanche constructs an elaborate fantasy to protect herself from the painful truths of her past. She dresses elegantly, speaks poetically, and imagines a world where she is still desirable and respected. However, her illusions cannot withstand the brutal force of reality, represented by Stanley, who strips away every layer of her deception. The play suggests that while illusions may provide temporary comfort, they cannot replace reality. Blanche's refusal to accept the truth ultimately leads to her downfall, highlighting the destructive nature of self-deception. The play also explores the dynamics of power between men and women, particularly through Blanche's struggle against Stanley. Blanche represents an older, fading social order, where women relied on charm and refinement to secure their place in society. Stanley, on the other hand, represents a new, more brutal world where power is physical and dominance is exerted through force. Stanley's victory over Blanche reflects a broader theme of male dominance and female vulnerability. Stella's decision to stay with Stanley even after his abuse suggests the limited options available to women in oppressive relationships. The play paints a bleak picture of power and survival, showing how those who rely on illusion and fragility are ultimately overpowered by those who embrace raw, unfiltered reality.